I'm Ashton Addison from the Crypto Coin Show, and today on Blockchain Interviews with Jonathan Schwartz, CEO and founder of GLIF, here to talk about decentralized finance, decentralized storage, Filecoin, and much more. John, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome. I know you've been heads down building hard, and I've seen the Filecoin system and the token around for many years, but I didn't know how expansive the ecosystem has gotten, and I think in part that's due to a lot of the code you and your team have written. I would love to hear a little bit about your work, what you've been building in the last few years, and what is GLIF, and then we can dive into all those details.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we could take you back to your point. Filecoin, when it was born in 2020, had no user programmable smart contract layer. So developers like myself, we couldn't actually deploy custom logic to the chain. That changed in March of 2023. Filecoin launched the FEVM, which is an Ethereum virtual machine on top of Filecoin, and that's when Glyph launched our DeFi product. And so that is sort of what we're most well known for today. It allows Filecoin token holders to deposit their Filecoin tokens and earn sustainable rewards by lending it to a diverse group of Filecoin miners who in the Filecoin world are known as storage providers because they take that Filecoin and they pledge it to the network alongside with some real data. And that helps grow both Filecoin as a decentralized storage network and also further secure the network. And so the DeFi protocol has been out pretty much since the FEVM launched in March of 2023. So we're coming up on 2 years now, and we are just about to launch our Glyph token, which is why we're sort of opening up the conversation with a wider audience and letting people know about some of the cool stuff that's been going on there.
Mm-hmm. That's very cool. I didn't know there was a FEVM, and it's great to see more applications being built on top of the ecosystem. Can you tell me more about DeFi on Filecoin? Is it unique or different than what people would see DeFi on Ethereum?
Yeah, great question. I would say today DeFi is still pretty early and young. There are the sort of common building blocks. So if you think of Glyph as like the liquid staking protocol on Filecoin, it's kind of like a Lido or a Jito, but built specifically for Filecoin.
Mm-hmm.
There's also, DEXs. So there's Uniswap and Sushi that are deployed on Filecoin. There's some lending markets that aren't super liquid quite yet, but Ajna is deployed. Secured finance is has also deployed some lending markets as well, and secured finance is also working on a liquidity like stablecoin. So there's kind of the primitive building blocks of DeFi are coming on Filecoin. But when you think about Filecoin is different from say Solana or Ethereum or the world of layer twos, and in that Filecoin is meant to sell storage, and so it's not quite as useful for deploying just generic DeFi. Like there's both faster and probably cheaper chains for traders. And so when you think about DeFi on Filecoin, it's interesting to think about it in the context of how does this DeFi primitive open up new types of storage protocols or compute protocols on chain that deal with the hardware that Filecoin has to offer. And so that's where you get interesting kind of composable primitives. One that I talk about a lot in a friendly partner project of ours is called Lighthouse, and they basically allow their users to stake Filecoin, put it into a liquid staking token, and use that yield to pay for storage deals and store the data. And when you're done storing it, you can unstake your Filecoin and be on your way. And eventually, that data will not be in Filecoin storage deals any longer. And so that to me is the really cool place that we need to do more DeFi work in and more exploratory kind of R&D. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to see that there's other applications like Lighthouse. I did see Lighthouse. I feel like there's so many different things potentially that you could be doing with DeFi, but I feel like you could break it down, especially with Filecoin, to something as simple as, hey, I have some Filecoin because I believe in the ecosystem. This first part of DeFi just allows me to stake that or earn some kind of yield by taking the Filecoin that I already have and just giving it to the validators or the miners that are helping with the decentralized storage. And it's sort of as simple as that. You don't have to be a finance major and working out algorithms of high yields if you're just looking
Yeah,
at passively holding Filecoin.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. But with DeFi as well, there's a lot of moving parts. I know you have to have a wallet ecosystem, different storage. I believe you were actually building some of these things prior to part going live. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I'll take you back to 2017 even. I was an engineer at Consensus working on a music crypto platform. And at that time, we were storing a lot of the music on IPFS. Are you familiar with IPFS?
Yep, for
Yeah.
sure.
So for just in case any audience members aren't, IPFS is a decentralized storage project that doesn't have any cryptocurrency involved with it. And Filecoin is built by the same company. It's just sort of like an incentivized version of IPFS. And when I first found out about these technologies, I basically quit my job with a friend at Consensus and started an IPFS focused development shop. So I was working on a bunch of custom storage solutions for different DAOs at that time. This was like 2018. And eventually, Filecoin was going to launch, and Protocol Labs reached out and said, hey, do you want to build the wallet for Filecoin's mainnet launch? And I'm like, absolutely. That sounds amazing. And then that went quite well. And they said, hey, how about the multi-sig for custodying ICO tokens? I'm like, hell yeah, that sounds great. And then these sort of opportunities kept coming. And that was actually the birth of the GLIF brand. So prior to the DeFi stuff in 2019, GLIF was a set of interoperable apps and tools that we built for Filecoin's mainnet launch and continued to maintain up until today. It has been both very difficult, but very fulfilling to rebuild some of the crucial infrastructure for an ecosystem, because you really get a ground floor look at all the different parts, and you get a special appreciation for going to potentially a different chain where you have all these things that are made for you, where on Filecoin, a lot of times we've had to build them again from scratch.
Definitely. And with the DeFi part live, I know that you mentioned that the token is being launched. What are all of the things that you can do prior to the token being launched on the platform? Is there anything that's like available, and then there's things that are just coming up?
Yeah, great question. So on the platform, of course, even without DeFi, you're always welcome to use our wallet, multi-sig. Those tools we still maintain. So if you're just transacting Filecoin or want to use other DeFi protocols, you are welcome to do so. And those have been around for quite some time. In addition to like that, on the DeFi side of things, the DeFi protocol has been out for nearly 2 years now. So if you have Filecoin, you can go right ahead to glyph.io and stake it or deposit it to earn some rewards. And you'll also earn some GLIF points, which will convert into tokens when the token launches. And if you are a storage provider or a data center, definitely come talk to me. That we could get you hooked up and get you borrowing some fill from the pool for mining.
And on the data storage side, decentralized storage sounds like a great option, compared to Google and Dropbox and these other more centralized solutions, at least for really techie people, that they have a lot of data, especially recording these videos. They're huge, and you need somewhere to store them. But I feel like decentralized storage is underappreciated. Where do you think decentralized storage is at as an industry, and will it be picking up more in the near future?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, being honest with ourselves, we still have a long way to go before decentralized storage is really at par and competitive with the AWS and Google clouds of the world for the same service tiers. I think, decentralized storage is very important. We should be able to have options when we choose where to store our stuff. Some is maybe more private, and we care to keep it in the hands of individuals or data centers that are nearby, or ones that we trust more, but maybe that charge more. Where others, massive data sets, we're cool with distributing to a very large group of nodes over, very cheap kind of transactions. And so I think where are we at today? We're still in the phases of learning and experimenting and finding out the models that work. We're with Filecoin specifically, we're trying all sorts of different things, and sales cycles also take a long time to get like a big enterprise customer. That could be like 12 or 24 months, and so the iteration cycles are slower, and so it's all a learning experience. I think for Filecoin specifically, talking about decentralized storage, I feel like we are in many ways the furthest along, mainly because we've had a really far head start. But I think for the first few years of Filecoin, we're focused on the blockchain-y parts, which is hard on its own. And in the last 18 months, I would say we've been focused a lot more on building storage products that can compete with AWS and Google, and actually charge money for customers to store data there. And in some cases on Filecoin, that's actually happening now, which is a huge milestone and an inflection point. And so hopefully my hope is to continue to see paid deals happening. That is a really good sign of success. And to scale those up at sort of a much larger capacity, that to me is when we'll start to see decentralized storage grow in sort of a much quicker way, because in a lot of ways it will be a lot cheaper. And for the amount of data that the world is producing in the age of AI and sort of where we're going, there is actually too much data to be stored. So you need these networks and these shared economy models to support the amount of data that the world is going to produce.
Definitely. That's great insights, John. And it makes sense that in the first few years, you really have to build out the blockchain infrastructure to ensure that the storage is secure, private, cheaper, and it's hard to compete with these huge database warehouses. And where it's at right now, obviously, native companies or dApps, they have an incentive to sort of stick inside Web3. And then there's the enterprise clients, which obviously would also have huge storage. On the business side, you're talking about paid deals, actually getting companies to store in Filecoin. Has there been a huge demand from actual Web3 companies or enterprises? Where exactly is that balance at right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when you examine the market in terms of volume of data being stored, the Web3 originated data storage needs make up a very, very small percentage of that. I wouldn't even say it's at 1%. So it's funny because a lot of us are terminally online in crypto. We're potentially addicted to crypto Twitter. And it feels like when you get a Web3 customer, it becomes a big deal, right? But the amount of data that we're talking about is very, very small. So in terms of landing enterprise customers, those are big customers. And they're also really sticky customers. Like at a certain amount of data, the fastest way for me to get it to you is to actually put it on a boat and ship it to you, right? Like the internet is not always the fastest rail to deliver data. And so I think when it comes to looking at the demand, you also kind of need to understand what is the actual type of storage that the customer wants. Like a lot of times we label decentralized storage as like one thing, but like, are we talking about cold storage that you don't want to access a lot? Are we talking about really hot frequencies, like high frequency storage that's going to power a web application? So Filecoin is way better set up for cold archival type storage, where the storage cost is very cheap. The retrieval cost is slower and more expensive. And for probably the most success cases that we have are for customers that fit that bill. So they don't really need to access their data that much. If ever, they may just have a legal requirement, or they want the daily proofs of having data stored that Filecoin offers. And it's not important for them that a user goes to a website and they can quickly download this file and see the content. That is the most, I think, frequent use case that Filecoin succeeds on. The fast retrievals and more modern storage service layer agreements are sort of they're being worked on, at least in Filecoin, in a layer 2 kind of architecture where there's other businesses that are built on Filecoin that are kind of interfacing with end customers that are offering sort of better, faster storage for different types of customers. A lot of those are Web3.
Yeah, that's great insights to know about. And people don't really think about that cold storage versus hot storage. If you're pinging something every few minutes and it's an active application, it's going to have different requirements than storing some files that you don't need for 10 years. So
Exactly.
that's great insights, John. And speaking of hot applications or Web3 dApps, I'm curious on the need for interoperability with the overall blockchain ecosystem with Filecoin. You mentioned at the beginning there's the FEVM, which could tie into the Ethereum ecosystem. I feel like that's enticing for overall blockchains to communicate with each other. What do you think about the importance of interoperability and being able to easily have Web3 natives move from other blockchains into Filecoin and back?
It's a really good question, and one that I think teams throughout Filecoin's history have kind of attempted at and then have stepped back from. And it's interesting because within a smart contract on a blockchain, it's actually very hard to get huge amounts of data in there, right? So like training AIs in blockchains, for example, like in an EVM is not yet doable, right? So like the composability in a smart contract runtime right now, if it were possible, would be very interesting. But there's not really a blockchain yet that I know of that could support having a trustless execution environment to operate on, say, petabytes of data. So when it comes to native interoperability between blockchains, I think it will be extremely important once we can get to those types of interactions where like you can run full training algorithms inside like a virtual machine that is a smart contract that's all like transactions on chain. Then my answers to this really change. I think generally the nice thing about both Filecoin and IPFS, that is to me one of the reasons that I got really like bullish on this tech in the beginning is called multi-hashing or CIDs. And what a CID is it's a content identifier that represents the actual content that you're looking for on the Filecoin or IPFS network. And it can't change. So if I have a hash that represents this video file, for instance, after we're done recording, if you change any bit of that recording, the hash is going to change because it's now different content. And so like these CID primitives, they're a much safer kind of fundamental primitive to build the internet and web on. Like I could go down a whole this library analogy that I use all the time that uses like, it really exemplifies the issues with location-based data, where instead of telling you, hey, this is the content that I'm looking for by its hash, I'm telling you, this is the content that I want by where it lives, which has all sorts of issues with what if some other data now lives there, or what if some, anyways, I won't go on that side tangent because I'll rant for too long. But the idea here is that CIDs have created interoperability between both IPFS and Filecoin, in that a CID represents an immutable data that you can go fetch on these Filecoin or IPFS networks, and they're used for NFTs. They're used in all sorts of different contexts. And so I think we'll continue to see that area grow in terms of programmability and cross-chain interactions. I think there will be, but it's hard for me to know exactly what that looks like at this time.
Yeah, and I don't think the enterprise clients, as long as they're getting quality storage that's more secure, cheaper, it's a whole other step when you try to involve multi-blockchain. Let's get them into crypto first.
yeah, like foot in the door kind of thing.
Yeah. I saw that GLIF is going to be at this year's ETH Denver conference, one of the largest North American conferences every year. And there's a pool party, which sounds cold for Colorado, but then I realized it was DeFi liquidity pools. Can you talk about that campaign with GLIF?
Yeah. So we are as a project right now, one of our weaknesses is just like the size of our community and the, how many people know about us and the stuff that we're working on, because we feel like we've built something that has fundamentally done really well and found product market fit in the Filecoin ecosystem. And now it's time to show more of the world about the project. And so that sets the context for both like conversations that I've been having online more and conversations like this. And again, thanks for having me on the show and asking great questions. The pool party is another attempt at meeting new friends in crypto and sharing success stories or learnings. And we decided, hey, let's just try to have fun with it. Our social team, I can't take credit for this. I'm not this creative. They wanted to have a pool party, but of course, like you said, it's Denver, it's way too cold. And GLIF obviously is like a staking pool. So we figured, hey, let's invite all friends who have any pool on DeFi. They can all come. And instead of swimming in a pool, it's actually billiards competition. So like pool table. And it'll just be a fun time. Yeah. If you're in Denver, definitely come through.
That's very cool, John. And so, the GLIF token you mentioned, the release is around the corner. Can you talk a little bit more about how the GLIF token actually fits into the ecosystem?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we're really excited about is to build a loyalty program for GLIF. And so the way that I think about this personally is really similar, like taking a lot of inspiration from, say, airline mile programs or Chipotle rewards is one. I'm a big Chipotle. Do you have Chipotle?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I never know. Some people do, some people don't. But like I'm farming Chipotle points all the time, right? And I'm very happy with it because eventually I get enough points for an entree, right? Or some chips and guac. And like for GLIF, I think in crypto we ride waves, right? We have good times and we have bad times. And also, how's my service? Maybe I should move it a little bit.
It looks good.
Is it blurred? Okay, perfect. So what I was saying was loyalty programs for me are a really good way to get away from the cycles of crypto that can drive you crazy, right? And give people something that they can really benefit from within the protocol. And so just like you would have with United Airlines or Chipotle, there's ways to earn rewards and there's ways to spend them to get benefits from that business. And that's exactly what GLIF is going to do. So there's ways to earn points through this loyalty program. The first one is like points have already been allocated to every LP and storage provider on the platform. And this won't be available right at launch, but there will be a sort of a benefit store where the loyalty rewards people can cash in their points and get real benefits. And that to me is something that I'm really excited about because one, I feel like it's a little different in that like when DeFi protocols, for a large part, I would say not all of them, but a large part of DeFi protocols, when you ask them what can we do with this token, the answer is normally governance, and that you will be able to do in GLIF as well. But I feel like it leaves a lot of potential on the table for creating closer relationships with your customers and to retain their usage and reward them for like interacting with your product. So I'm really excited to launch that because it just feels like away from a lot of the speculation and hype around crypto. Like there will be real things that you can do with this token, and that to me is so important for our users and also for the token as well. Like I think that will help.
Definitely. And you mentioned earlier about starting to get GLIF points before the token launches. Do you need Filecoin token to do that, or can you use stable coins in the DeFi and other crypto assets?
Right now, you need Filecoin. So you just deposit Filecoin into GLIF. You'll receive iFill, which is like the liquid staking token of GLIF. And then just by holding iFill, you'll get at least some points before the airdrop comes.
Okay, that's great to know. And is there any tentative roadmap for accumulating the points to the token launch and then the product growth beyond that?
Yeah, so in terms of roadmap, the number one priority right now is just get the token out, just get it launched, and kind of like how we were talking about earlier on this call. Some of the reasons that it's taken us a while is because we have to build a lot of infrastructure from scratch that Filecoin doesn't always have, right? Just like we
Hmm.
did for the wallet and the multi-sig, we've been doing that again and again, and so it's taken us some time, longer than we would have liked to get it out. So for us, just get it out. Then next step on the roadmap is launch the benefit store and the loyalty program. And those there will be several ways to earn rewards, whether you're a liquidity provider, a storage provider, or even just a community member. We want to have a wealth of different options to earn rewards. And in terms of road mapping, the benefit side is also quite important. Like it's easy to build ways to earn, but the onus is on us to build products that are good enough that our users want to spend. Right?
Hmm.
Like for us, that's a really important metric is to like how well are our products delivering value to our customers? Well, like if customers are not buying the products that we're selling with GLIF tokens, then we're not doing our job well enough. So for
Hmm.
us, spending an enormous amount of energy and care and giving a lot of love to our future products that will be sold out of this kind of benefit store is very important, and that aspect of the roadmap can take us quite a long way, I think,
Hmm.
and I would be a fool to try and guess all the products that we will build on that roadmap and how long that will take for right now. But the last step of the roadmap is to figure out how can we take this model that we've built for Filecoin, which when you take a step back, you see that Glyph is a way to take a new type of collateral, which is an actual like hardware storage provider, and allow folks to get capital from that as collateral. And that to me is a model that can work for other types of hardware involved in the AI world. So GPUs and different types of network that allow you to kind of put down a deposit and rent out your hardware. This is
Hmm.
something that we can potentially replicate with other ecosystems as well. And so for Glyph, I think that's the very high level roadmap is get the token out, get the benefits shop going, get a bunch of great products in there, and then see how we can help apply this model to other ecosystems and help other hardware providers benefit in the way that Filecoin storage providers have.
Definitely. Well, it sounds very exciting, John. Looking forward to seeing it all go out. And we can save the second half of the roadmap for future videos. I know there will be a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
What is the
Thanks for
best
having me on,
way?
man.
You're very
Yeah.
welcome, man. What's the best way to get started on accumulating the points, learning more about the timeline for the roadmap, and following along for the token release?
Absolutely. I'd say the best thing to do is just stay informed. We're always making announcements. So following us on Twitter at GlyphIO, follow me on Twitter. I'm always chatting. You might not want to hear all of it, but also joining our Discord. That's where the community gathers. And if you ever run into problems with the product, you can open support tickets. We have,
Hmm.
moderation staff in there to help uh, solve any of your problems. You can also jump in our Telegram, which is more of just like a one-way announcements kind of
Hmm.
channel. But that's a good way to stay informed. And again, it should be as easy as taking some Filecoin, depositing into Glyph, and just doing nothing. Like ideally, we just want
Hmm.
people to feel relaxed and chill. And yeah, that's the best way to get involved. And definitely give us a follow. Stay up to date. We're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff.
Sounds great, Sean. I'm going to leave those links in the show notes as well. And I'm going to be following along for the launch of this. I appreciate your insights into where decentralized storage is at and where it's heading. And I learned a lot about Filecoin. I did not know about this entire ecosystem. And I know that there's going to be a lot of storage demand, especially as AI continues to grow. And I'm hoping it all goes on to the Web3 side because that is the future. So I'm wishing you and your team all the best with the upcoming launch and beyond.
Thank you. And thanks for asking such great questions, man. This was a blast.